It was just another busy evening at the expensive restaurant. The lights were warm and soft, the air smelled of roasted garlic and fresh bread, and the soft clink of glasses filled the room. The guests were dressed in clean suits and fancy dresses. Everyone seemed to belong there except for the young waitress, who moved quietly from table to table. She was not someone people noticed. She wore the same plain black uniform as the others, but there was something quieter about her. She never smiled too much. She didn't talk unless she had to. She just did her job with focus, always polite, always fast. Most guests didn't even remember her face by the time she walked away. But if anyone had paid closer attention, they might have noticed something unusual about her. Every time she walked past the grand piano in the corner of the room, she would slow down just a little. Her eyes would rest on the black and white keys for a second longer than needed. Sometimes her fingers would twitch slightly as if remembering an old habit. Then she would look away quickly and continue serving plates and filling water glasses. Nobody knew much about her. Not the other waiters, not the guests. They just knew she came on time, worked hard, and left quietly. What they didn't know was that she used to play piano every single day when she was younger. It was her favorite thing in the world. She used to dream of becoming a pianist. But life had other plans. After her father passed away suddenly, everything changed. Her mother became sick with stress and sadness, and money became a big problem. She had to quit music school and start working to help pay the bills. The piano at home was sold to cover rent. Years passed. Her hands that once danced on keys now carried heavy trays. Her days were filled with orders, tips, and sore feet. Deep inside, that love for music never really went away. Sometimes, late at night when the restaurant was closed and empty, she would sit at the piano in the corner and press a few quiet notes. Just for a moment. Just enough to feel that soft warmth in her chest again, but she never told anyone about it. It was her secret. One she kept buried under long work hours and tired evenings. That night, the restaurant was even busier than usual. A large table near the center had been reserved for a famous billionaire and his guests. The staff had been told to give extra care. Everything had to be perfect. The waitress, like always, did her job without saying much. She served drinks, brought appetizers, and cleaned up quickly. She didn't care who the man was. Rich people came and went all the time. But she didn't know that her life was about to change forever in the next hour. For now. She was just a quiet waitress with a forgotten dream, working in a loud world that never asked what she truly loved. Nobody saw her heart. Nobody knew what her hands were once capable of. Nobody expected anything special from her. And yet, sitting silently in the corner of the room, the old grand piano waited dusty, ignored. Almost forgotten just like her. But sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one person, one small request, and everything can change. The restaurant was filled with laughter, glasses clinking, and loud conversations. The billionaire and his group sat at the largest table in the center. Everyone knew who he was, famous, powerful, and very, very rich. His voice carried through the room as he laughed loudly, told jokes, and ordered the most expensive items on the menu. People glanced at his table, some curious, some impressed. The waitress moved around quietly as usual, her face calm, her step steady. She brought their wine without spilling a drop, took their orders carefully, and stayed out of the spotlight. She wasn't trying to be noticed. She just wanted to finish her shift and go home to her mother, who was still not well. But the billionaire noticed her. Not in a kind way, not in a deep way. He was just bored. While waiting for dessert, he leaned back in his chair, stretched his arms, and looked around the restaurant like he owned it. Then his eyes stopped at the black grand piano sitting in the corner. "Why is that piano just sitting there?" Asked loudly, "Does anyone even play it?" The manager, standing nearby and trying to impress, gave a quick answer with a smile. "It's more for decoration now, sir. But one of our waitresses knows how to play." The billionaire raised an eyebrow. "Really? A waitress who plays the piano? Not that I'd like to see." He looked around, then pointed straight at her. "Hey, you, yes, you. You know how to play? Go on then. Play us something." She froze. The room wasn't fully quiet yet, but many heads turned toward her. She blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. Her hands gripped the tray a little tighter. She looked at the manager, then back at the billionaire. He was smiling now, clearly entertained, like he was offering her a chance to be part of a show. "I'm working," she said quietly, hoping it would be enough. He shrugged and said loud, "Enough for others to hear, well, I'm a paying guest. And I want to hear some music, unless she's just bluffing." Few people laughed lightly. The attention was now clearly on her. Her cheeks felt warm. Her heart began to race. She hadn't played for anyone in years, and now, out of nowhere, she was being asked to perform like a stage act, with no warning, in front of strangers powerful. Rich strangers. The manager walked over and whispered, "Just play something short. They'll forget in a minute. It'll be fine." But she didn't. Want to cause trouble? She needed the job. Her mother needed her to keep this job. So, even though her hands were shaking, she gave a small nod and walked slowly toward the piano. The room wasn't fully silent yet, but people were definitely watching now. Few whispered. A few looked at their phones, ready to record. The billionaire sat back in his chair, sipping his drink, amused. She sat on the bench and looked at the keys. They were clean, but cold. She placed her fingers on them gently, just to feel them again. Memories rushed back. Her father's voice, their small piano at home, the laughter, the love, the music. She took a deep breath. This wasn't her plan. She hadn't asked for this, but here she was. One song. That's all they wanted. One moment. And maybe, just maybe, it could be hers. She sat on the piano bench with her back straight, but her heart pounding. Her fingers hovered above the keys, unsure and stiff. The lights in the restaurant suddenly felt too bright and the room too quiet. People who were laughing and eating just minutes ago were now watching her closely, waiting to be entertained. She could feel their eyes, their curiosity, and maybe even a bit of judgment. Her hands trembled slightly. It had been years since she had played for anyone, years since she had even played at all. She glanced around once. The billionaire was smirking, tapping his fingers on the table like he was expecting some kind of joke. A few of his friends had their phones out already, recording as if this was some sort of performance or game. A few waiters stood in the back, half worried, half curious. She looked back at the keys. They seemed both familiar and strange. She pressed a key softly. The sound came out light, unsure, like a whisper. Then another key. And another. The melody had not yet begun. Her mind raced. What should she play? What could she even remember? Everything felt far away. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then, slowly, she remembered. A song. A very old one. The first one her father had taught her when she was just a little girl. It was soft and full of emotion. Not flashy or loud. Just real. She remembered how he sat beside her, guiding her small fingers. How he smiled when she got it right. How proud he was of her. That memory warmed something inside her. She took a deep breath, and she began to play. At first, the notes were soft and uneven. A few fingers missed their marks. She felt the stumbles and almost stopped. But she pushed forward, letting the music guide her. Her hands slowly remembered what her heart never forgot. The melody started to flow better. The keys responded to her touch. She leaned in a little closer, her eyes half closed. Shutting out the room, she didn't care anymore about the billionaire or the stairs. She wasn't playing for them. She was playing for herself, for her father, for the little girl who used to dream big before life got in the way. With each passing second, her fingers grew more confident. The song rose and fell like a wave. The soft notes danced through the air. Even the clinking of forks and knives stopped. The low hum of conversations faded. People began to listen, not just watch, surely listen. The billionaire leaned forward, slightly, his drink resting untouched. His smile faded, replaced by something else, something quieter. No one expected this. They thought she would play a simple tune, maybe a few funny notes, and that would be it. But this was different. This had feeling. This had depth. This had pain, love, and something more. Her hands moved gently but surely, as if each note told a part of her story. The room slowly fell into silence. No talking, no laughing, no movement. Even the kitchen staff peeked through the doorway, frozen in place, and there she was, just a simple waitress in a plain black uniform, sitting at a piano in the corner of a busy restaurant making. Everyone feels something they hadn't felt in a long time. The moment was hers now. She didn't smile. She didn't look up. She just played. Because when the heart remembers, the hands follow. And in that moment, everything else disappeared. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, as if she was waking something that had been asleep for a long time. The notes from the piano floated softly through the room. At first, people weren't sure what they were hearing. It wasn't a song they knew. It wasn't loud or exciting, but there was something in it, something warm, something honest. The way she played made people stop and feel still, and everyone understood right away. In the beginning, a few guests whispered to each other. One person near the billionaire chuckled quietly and said, "Is that all she knows?" Another made a small joke under his breath. Even the billionaire smirked and raised his eyebrows like he wasn't impressed. The girl heard the whispers. She felt the laughter. Her heart sank a little. Her hands almost stopped moving. She looked down at the keys and her mind began to panic. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe she should have stayed quiet. Maybe she should have just said no. But then, like a small flame inside her, something pushed back. A memory, a voice from the past. Her father's voice. His words, "Play from your heart. Don't worry about who's watching. Let the music speak for you." She closed her eyes, took a slow, deep breath, and let go. This time she played not to impress anyone, but to feel something real again. Her fingers started to move with more purpose. Her back relaxed. Her hands found their way like they never forgot. The song, once shaky, now had a shape, a rhythm, a story. The notes flowed, like water, soft and smooth, carrying something deeper than just sound. The room began to change. One by one, the whispers stopped. Phones were lowered, forks were set down, conversations paused. People turned their full attention toward her. The billionaire leaned forward slightly. The smirk on his face faded, said nothing now. His eyes followed her hands as they moved. Across the piano, slow and steady, full of quiet power. Nobody expected this from her. Not from the girl who had just brought their bread and drinks. Not from the waitress who never spoke unless she had to. But now they were seeing something else, something they couldn't explain. A piece of her heart, raw and open, flowing through the music. Some people closed their eyes just listening. Others watched in silence. Completely still. It didn't matter if they knew music or not. What she was playing didn't need words. It spoke straight to the heart. Even the kitchen staff stepped out quietly to watch. The head chef stood by the door, arms crossed, listening, without saying a word. One of the younger dishwashers wiped his hands on his apron and whispered, "She's amazing." And still, she played. Every note was a memory. Every sound was a feeling. She remembered playing that same song at home as a child. Her father smiling beside her, tapping his fingers along with the beat. She remembered how proud he looked when she finally got it right. She remembered the day the music stopped, when he was gone and life became hard. But right now, in this moment, the music was alive again. Not just for her, but for everyone in the room. When she reached the middle of the song, a deep note echoed across the room like a quiet storm. People felt it in their chest. It was gentle, but it had weight. It's the kind of sound that makes everything else feel far away. The billionaire sat still, his hand on his chin, no longer smiling. And for the first time in years, the girl felt something. She thought she had lost confidence, not from applause, not from praise, just from knowing that even after everything, the music inside her had never truly died. The sound of the piano filled every corner of the restaurant now. It was not just background music anymore. It had become the center of the room. The guests had stopped talking. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the whispers, all of it had disappeared. There was only the music now. It was gentle, but strong. Each note carried something deep. It wasn't just a song, it was like she was speaking through the keys, telling a story. Sharing feelings that words could never say, people watched her with quiet eyes. Some looked surprised, some looked touched. One woman near the back wiped a tear from her cheek and didn't even notice she was crying. The man beside her simply nodded slowly, as if the music was pulling out a memory he hadn't thought about in years. Even the servers, who were usually busy running around, had stopped. They stood still in corners, near the walls, near the kitchen. Doors, watching, listening, feeling, and in the center table. The billionaire sat completely still. He had started the night full of loud energy, laughing loudly, showing off in front of his guests. But now he was quiet. His smile was gone, not in a bad way, but in a thoughtful way. He wasn't looking at her like she was just a waitress anymore. His eyes had changed. He looked curious, focused, even a little confused, as if he couldn't understand how someone like her could play with so much emotion. But the girl didn't look at him. She didn't look at anyone. Her eyes stayed closed, or on the keys. Her body swayed gently with the rhythm, and her fingers moved like they had been born for this. It didn't feel like she was trying hard. It felt natural, like the piano had been waiting for her all this time. She played as if the room wasn't full of people, as if it was just her. The piano and the memories. Each part of the song carried a different feeling. Some notes were sad, like goodbye. Were soft, like a whisper from someone you love. Some were bright, like a quiet hope. It was all inside the music, and it touched everyone who listened. Some guests leaned forward in their chairs without realizing it. Others sat frozen, like they were afraid to move and break the moment. The lights above the piano made her face glow softly, and even though she wore a simple black work uniform, in that moment, she looked like someone who belonged on a concert stage. And yet, she had no idea. She didn't know she was holding the whole room with just her hands. She didn't know she had changed the mood of an entire evening. She didn't even know she'd made a billionaire forget his phone for the first time all night. She was just lost in the song. It was almost like the music had opened a door inside her. A door that had been locked for a long time. Behind that door were all her feelings, her love for her father, her pain from losing him, her dreams that she buried, and the strength she didn't know she still had. As she played the last part of the song, her fingers slowed down. The notes became softer, quieter, like a soft breeze at the end of a long day. And just before the final note, there was a stillness, a deep, gentle silence. Then she pressed the last key. It was like the sound settled over everyone like a warm blanket. Then, silence. Not a single clap yet. Not a word. Not even a breath. The room stayed frozen. People didn't want the moment to end, and in that stillness, for the first time in years, the girl felt truly seen. For a few long seconds, there was only silence. The last note from the piano still floated in the air like a soft echo, fading slowly into stillness. The girl kept her hands on the keys, not moving. Her eyes stayed closed, and her chest rose and fell with a quiet breath. It was as if the music still lived inside her, not ready to leave just yet. No one clapped at first, not because they didn't like it, but because they were frozen in the moment. People looked at one another, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Something deep had touched them, something they didn't expect to feel in the middle of dinner. Then, someone stood up near the back of the restaurant. He clapped once, then twice, slowly, and just like that, the room broke into a wave of applause. It wasn't polite, clapping, it was full, loud, real. Some stood on their feet, some cheered. One woman near the front wiped her tears openly, not caring who saw. A man across the room closed his eyes and nodded, his hands coming together slowly, with respect. The servers who had been watching from the side joined in, clapping with wide eyes and quiet smiles. The girl finally opened her eyes. She looked up, surprised as if waking from a dream. Her eyes moved across the room, confused by what she saw. Everyone was clapping for her. She stood up from the piano bench slowly, unsure what to do. She didn't smile or wave. She just stood there, her face calm, her heart full. She never played to impress anyone. But still, the room had felt something through her music hand. Now they were showing her. What? With their hands. With their faces. With their silence turned to sound. And then she looked at the billionaire. He was still seated, still watching. But this time, he wasn't smirking. He wasn't making jokes or showing off. His eyes were fixed on her, and there was something new in them. He looked respectful, maybe even humbled. His fingers tapped the table gently, not out of boredom this time, but thought. He gave one slow nod in her direction, almost like a quiet thank you. For the first time that evening, he had nothing to say. She gave a small bow and stepped away from the piano. The applause slowly faded. People returned to their seats. Conversations started again, but they were softer now, more gentle. Something had shifted in the air. The manager walked over to her, still shocked. He whispered, "I didn't know you could play like that." She gave a small shrug. "I haven't played in a long time," she replied softly. A few guests tried to speak to her as she passed by, saying things like, "That was beautiful," or "You should be on a stage." She thanked them quietly, still a little overwhelmed. She hadn't expected any of this. She had only wanted to get through her shift, go home, and rest. But somehow, tonight had turned into something else. As she returned to the back room to grab her tray, she felt different, lighter, like something locked inside her had been opened. And maybe, just maybe, it didn't need to be closed again. The rest of the night went on. Orders were taken. Food was served. But people kept glancing toward the piano. It no longer looked like a decoration. It looked like something real, something that had just reminded them all of what feeling truly meant. And the girl, once just a quiet part of the background, had become someone they would never forget. All from one song. She went back to her shift like nothing had happened. Picked up the tray, refilled water glasses, cleared tables. Her steps were the same, her face calm, but something inside her had changed. Something small but strong. The piano sat quietly in the corner again, just like before. But now it wasn't just a piece of furniture. It had become part of her story. And the people who had seen her play, they couldn't stop thinking about it. Some guests left quiet tips with little notes like, "Thank you for the music." A man in a suit stopped her gently and said, "You reminded me of my daughter." A young woman gave her a smile and said, "I haven't cried like that in years." She didn't know what to say to any of them. She just gave a soft nod and kept working. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the restaurant was closing, she changed into her old coat and prepared to leave. The piano still stood there, quiet under the soft lights. She gave it one last look before heading out, not knowing if she'd ever touch it again. But just as she reached for the back door, the manager called her name. "Wait a second. Someone wants to talk to you." She turned and saw the billionaire standing near the counter. He wasn't surrounded by people this time. No laughter, no cameras. Just him, alone, with his coat in one hand and a thoughtful look on his face. He walked over slowly, not in his usual loud way. He looked different now, calmer, less proud, more real. "I've heard a lot of music in my life," he said, his voice low. "Big concerts, famous people. But what you played tonight, that was something else." She stayed quiet, unsure what to say. He continued, "That wasn't just skill, that was heart, that was truth. You don't see that often." She looked down at the floor. "I used to play, before life got in the way." He nodded slowly. "It's still in you, that's clear." He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small card. "This is my assistant's number. I run a few arts foundations. We help young people get back into music. Scholarships, teachers, even studio time. If you want to play again for real, call. No pressure." She stared at the card, unsure if she should take it. "I'm not giving you charity," he added. "I'm offering you a chance. Because the world needs to hear that music, and you need to let it out." He didn't wait for her answer. He gave her one last nod and walked out into the night. She stood there, holding the card, her hand shaking just a little. Not from fear, but from hope. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. The next day, she didn't call. or the day after. But she kept the card in her pocket. She went to work, helped her mother, and played a few soft notes on the piano each night after close. Little by little, she found her rhythm again. Her heart felt lighter, her steps less heavy, and one quiet morning, before her shift began, she sat at the piano again. She looked at the card, took a deep breath, then made the call. Not to become famous, not to impress anyone, but to give herself permission to dream again. Because sometimes, it only takes one person to see you, one song to remind you who you are, and one moment to change everything.